McCain with the alliance and not bring up Ted Sampley.
Ted did quite an article in the U.S. Veteran Dispatch, and the whole front cover was McCain, the real Manchurian candidate.
Right.
And it was a very lengthy article, it took up several pages. And so he got a call from McCain's office, and he went over there, and I don't think McCain was there, he was gone, but McCain's first-hand man was there, and they got in a fist fight.
Right, he slugged him on the stage.
What he did was walk in with a handful of these veterans dispatches and throws it on the desk of the his senior staffer. I forget what the guy's name is. And
Yeah, and they got into a fist fight.
Long sold
I think Ted came out okay on that one.
I bet he did.
I know I was in my freshman year in high school, I think that's about right, when the decision, and McCain was one of the main signers on it, when the decision came through to change the official status from POWMIAs essentially no longer existed, and they were moving the title over, all that kind of stuff, and the family was writing letters, and the alliance was reaching out, and everybody was writing letters, and my mom asked if I wanted to write a letter, and so we talked about it, and Dolores and I talked about it, and they in their infinite wisdom allowed me to write it by myself, and so in my freshman high school brain, but still pretty smart, decided that I was going to make it blatantly understood that I didn't think that what he was doing was okay, and so I called him out in the first few sentences and said, well, I think it might be easier if I just say it in what we do in basketball games when the referee makes a really bad call and it's obvious that he made the mistake and he knows that he made the mistake, so he either is siding with the other team purposefully or knows he made the mistake and doesn't want to lose face, and we chant nuts and bolts, we got screwed. And then I signed it thank you for your time, Nicolette Rose. And I think I actually said Nicolette Genevieve Apodaca Pizzucillo Rose, and gave, niece of Victor J. Apodaca Jr., U.S. Air Force, and this was before any accounting had really happened regarding my uncle's case. And I knew that as soon as I put Apodaca in there, that it was probably not going to go over well for me. I might not be able to get into college, but thankfully that didn't happen. And to this day, I'm very happy that when I lived in DC, that not once did I have an accidental interaction with him, because I don't think he gets very many letters from 13-year-olds who chant at him. Did you have the information on Baron 52?
I do. So John Matajove was at our meeting, I think 2 years ago, and he gave a great assessment analysis of what he and his family did to get back information regarding his brother. And he's given me 2 documents that I can read, but I can't give copies to anybody because of the person that gave him this information gave it to him in confidential, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. But this is just some of the things, and he was so happy when he and his family had a senator behind him, and they had all this documentation about the tourism document that he could have his brother's case reversed from KIA to back to POW. And to this day, he's just been given the runaround, and he's just so upset and disappointed. And so was sent to me like 2 days ago. And I'm just going to read a little background. And it says the following transcript is of a telephone conversation recorded by John Matajov on 8 November 2016. This phone conversation is the official phone call made to John Matajov by Lieutenant General Gina M. Grosso, U.S. Air Force DCS Manpower Personnel and Services Secretary of the Air Force. The phone call was made to inform John Matajov of the Secretary of the Air Force's decision pertaining to the Matajov's request for a review of their brother's KIA status from the Vietnam War. John Matajov is Sergeant Joseph Matajov's primary next of kin. This phone call is a result of analysis of new and compelling evidence the Matajov family submitted to DoD accounting officials in a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation on 5 February 2015 via family attorneys. So Grosso said, but I do have to tell you after a thorough assessment from the analysis from DPAA, my thorough reading of all the information that you provided, all of my staff and the staff going up to the Secretary of the Air Force, I have determined there is no basis to re-examine or disturb the original 1973 KIA determination, and I regret to say that because I know how important this is to you, and I can certainly understand why it is so important to have the remains of your brother, but unfortunately we just don't believe there's any new information at this time to be able to reverse the original decision. So Matajov says, okay, of course I'm a little bit disheartened to hear that. My immediate question would be, and I don't know if you're equipped to provide the answer at this very second, but what is the explanation of the tourism documents and the separate accounting system that those documents state that the Defense Intelligence Agency had a separate recording or accounting system indicating 4 of the Baron 52 crew members were actually captured, and then in 1974, in February 1974, they changed the status to captured, died in captivity. What is the explanation for that if they swore under testimony, they being Bob DeSante and the Defense Intelligence Agency at the Senate Select hearings, that they all died in the crash? I do not understand how that grows of a different fact, and I call those both facts because they did occur. How can they not be explained away? With what you just told me, there is no basis to establish or redetermine a review of the case. So Grosso just said, I understand that the DPAA and analysis have provided you with a direct answer to that, but I can tell you my assessment from reading all the documents, there is a lot of it. And Matajov says, no, forgive the interruptions, and I apologize for it, but no, DPAA has not provided me a response to that. And it just goes on like that. It's just like, it's like a big circle. He says one thing and she goes back like as if she's read everything, and it's a very large document, and it took me hours to read it, but I don't find any determination. But she must not have read the tourism document, because it does say, and I happen to have a copy of it, and I'm only going to read one part, and it was from December 17, 1991, and it's under C. The 8 U.S. Air Force officers and enlisted men on a U.S. Air Force EC-47Q aircraft and lost while on a signals intelligence mission over Laos in February 1973 were reported as having been killed by the U.S. Air Force 3 weeks after their loss in the absence of any compelling evidence of death and in the manner inconsistent with the normal casualty investigation procedures. Furthermore, U.S. military intelligence resources in Laos and Thailand, which could have been employed to help determine the fate of such personnel, may have been actively prevented from doing so by the CIA station in Vien Thanh, Laos. And it says additional information which can only be made available by DIA and JCRC is required to complete this review. And this is signed by the tourism. And in the second part, it is saying, this is the Senate Select Committee. The committee staff is saying, in addition, there is an indication that DIA has as yet unspecified information that some U.S. Air Force personnel lost in Laos in February 1973 had been captured alive and had died in captivity. Recovered material also shows the Air Force officially reporting confirmation that they had died, but without the recovery remains. What is unclear is the basis for DIA's conclusions, how long they survived into captivity, what was their actual fate, and how the Air Force confirmed death without the recovery of any remains. In short, there is evidence that the administration has had information about some unaccounted for Americans who may have been captured alive, but denied public release of this information, and that all of these individuals were later declared dead while in a missing status. The reasons why this was done are unclear, and a full accounting, not just in name, is demanded. And Gross was saying that this information that was just read is not true. So I just feel bad for the Matajoe family, because I told John a few years ago, don't set yourself up, and that's what's going on. They had senators backing them, and they filmed everything. They were allowed to film everything, so it had all on film. But they're still saying, with documents, declassified documents, that no, there's no reason to change it because they're dead. And they're not going by the living status and then dead in captivity without knowing how many years it could have been or how did they die. And that's all that John is asking for, is the truth. Thank you for this.
So these are various photos that some people haven't seen. Obviously the one with Victor in his flight suit next to his plane and the POW symbol, that's kind of the family's stock photo that we used for decades. But the other photos are actually of him during his time at the U.S. Air Force Academy, as well as when he helped start up the lacrosse club. And then the center photo is his graduation, surrounded by his sisters. The tiny one in the white, all the way to the left, is my Mima. And I've never seen this photo until, like 4 days ago, Mom? And she forwarded it to me, and what was funny was it came up goofy on my phone, and all I saw was her instead of the rest of the photo, and I was wondering why she had sent a photo of me to myself. I was like, I don't know, what is that? What am I wearing? Yeah, so apparently I look like my mom. I used to say that I look like my dad, but that is incorrect. So for those of you in the room who don't know, my uncle was the first Native American to be accepted to and graduate from the Air Force Academy. And so he was older than the average bear when he got there. And he brought lacrosse because, as every good Native should, they know how to use a lacrosse stick. So this is on my father's side, and my dad's family, as long as they have known, obviously for going on 40 years that I've been on this earth, they've known about what's been going on my mom's side of the family, but no one talked about the fact that Laverne Nig, he goes by Bud, was lost on the USS Oklahoma, and he is still unaccounted for. He was 18 when he was lost, and the three gentlemen up at the top are brothers. They were cousins of each other. All of them were on the Oklahoma, and when the Oklahoma went down, the three brothers were able to get out and swim to another ship that then, within an hour, got sunk. And amazingly enough, they also made it off of that ship and made it to shore. And I believe cousin, right here is the one when they got home for R&R. The family's ranch, actually, Bud's family and their family's ranch surrounded a lake in North Dakota, and so all of the land kind of butted up against each other, and they went out fishing, and he had a PTSD episode being in the water again, and ended up falling off of the fishing boat, or not even a fishing boat, it's a little boat with like, you know, and passed away. So it took up until about a year and a half ago for my dad's side of the family to make their way to be able to talk to me. And so Bud's primary next of kin is his youngest brother, who was 6 when he was lost and is about to be 89. And now we're talking about, what do you do next when your primary next of kin, the only person who is alive who remembers him, is 89 years old and was 6 when he was lost. And so we're going to have some more discussions, and I might be taking over a secondary next of kin, so that when he passes, somebody who's used to this fight can take on dealing with it, instead of some of his family members who just kind of don't know what it all entails. Obviously, you heard from Susan this morning, and I'm gonna have to figure out whose wrist that is. It was, I know that sounds weird, I'm sorry.
No, it's not bad.
That makes me feel
It's
bad.
not right.
It was in Lynn O'Shea's recovered files, and she has a lot of various photos from people who would email us, and I still get emails all the time with, hey, I'm wearing this bracelet, do you know, can you help me figure out if this person's been recovered or not? And then over the years, giving me advocate, so Gus Dante, for working on the POWMA chairs across the country. And then the one that's laying down on the chair is actually the one that we gave to Mr. Larry Stark. So 2017, and we've got Mary Vidine and I standing there in front of our cute little one table. This year we graduated up to 2 tables because they said that we had so many people stopping by and so much stuff to hand out that we got 2 tables this year. So we moved up on their very last year at Rolling Thunder, but hey. David Herdlicka and his family, they're below him. So unfortunately, this case has been with the Alliance, I think, since the very early years. And Carol's still fighting the fight, but she too is tired, similar to Ann Holland, and it's been harder and harder for her to come, not just to our stuff, but to even make it to a DPA family meeting, because she just has no faith that she's going to be getting any information that's truthful. This is my Uncle Victor's graduation cap that I didn't know my mom had, and she decided to surprise me at my family's formal wedding, because, as I said, we got married so that we could get orders together, and then we had a formal wedding and did the missing man table. And my mom, like it's not already a time where you're already like weepy and teary. My mom gets up and presents Victor's graduation cap, and I always thought this was interesting, since everybody has been up in arms about having a Bible or any version of a religious book on the missing man tables now. Well, we put a peace pipe on it because we're Native American, so I'm sure somebody's going to see this and get upset. And this is, in closing, this was something that Lynn and Dolores used to put on the front of our agendas or on the bits and pieces just to kind of remind people. But the Lord says, don't cry any longer, for I have heard your prayers, and you will see them again. They will come back to you from the distant land of the enemy. And apparently this is in closing because I'm the last speaker, and I'm trying not to cry. So thank you guys for being here. And just as a heads up, I guess I don't really say it from behind the pole. Hold on. Sorry. We may be small here, but I just checked Facebook and all the Facebook Lives, and right now, the various things, we still have one that's uploading to the great Wi-Fi interwebs that keep crashing in this hotel. And we have just shy of 4,000 views on all of our stuff today. And since yesterday, starting to post about where we were at and different photos, we're just shy of 10,000 people. So obviously, I want you guys to know that kind of stuff so that, you know, keep the hope up. And social media is one of the things that is the way to get a hold of my generation, and most definitely the younger generations. And we do have some people who are logging in from very, very, very far away. And I'm gonna get that analysis because last year it included people in Bangkok, people in Cambodia, the Ukraine, Germany, all sorts of sporadic random places. And I think it's important to know that we might only have, 20, 30, 40 people in and out of